The wind outside the small diner cut through the empty street like a warning, carrying the last cold breath of the year. Inside, the lights were dim, the booths nearly empty, and a faint smell of fried food mixed with old coffee lingered in the air. New Year's Eve was usually busy, but tonight felt forgotten. At the far corner table, a poor woman sat alone, her thin coat folded neatly beside her. She counted 3 crumpled dollar bills again, her fingers trembling slightly, as if hoping the amount might magically change if she looked long enough. It didn't. It was still only $3. She studied the menu anyway, not because she had choices, but because pretending felt easier than admitting reality. Her eyes moved slowly, skipping over meals she couldn't afford, until they landed on the cheapest item. A small bowl of soup. That would be enough, she told herself. It had to be. When the waitress approached, the woman smiled politely, the kind of smile people learn when they don't want to be a burden. "Just the soup, please," she said softly, already placing the $3 on the table as proof she wouldn't ask for more. The waitress nodded, used to moments like this, and walked away. The woman wrapped her hands around the warm mug of water that had been set down earlier. Heat seeped into her palms, and for a moment she closed her eyes. She thought about how different her life used to be, about holidays filled with noise, laughter, and food shared without counting coins. Her soup arrived quietly. She thanked the waitress, her voice barely audible over the low hum of the heater. She ate slowly, savoring each spoonful as if it were a feast, because for her, tonight, it was. Outside, fireworks popped faintly in the distance, early celebrations she wasn't part of. The diner door opened and a rush of cold air swept in. A man stepped inside, shaking snow from his jacket. He looked tired but alert, the kind of tired that comes from responsibility, not laziness. A young boy followed him, holding his hand tightly, eyes wide as he took in the room. The man guided the boy to a booth near the middle, helping him climb onto the seat. "Sit tight, champ," he said gently. "We'll warm up soon." The boy nodded, trusting completely, and began drawing shapes on the fogged-up window with his finger. As the man removed his jacket, his gaze drifted around the diner. That's when he noticed the woman in the corner. She sat alone, shoulders slightly hunched, eating as if she were afraid the food might disappear if she didn't protect it. Something about her posture caught his attention. He wasn't rich. He was a single dad, working long hours to keep things steady for his son. He knew the weight of counting dollars, of choosing between bills and groceries. Seeing the woman stirred a familiar ache in his chest, one he thought he'd learned to ignore. The waitress came to his table, and he ordered simply, nothing fancy. When she turned to leave, he paused. Her. "Excuse me," he said quietly, nodding toward the corner. "What's her story?" The waitress hesitated, then sighed softly. "She comes in sometimes. Always polite. Never has much." The man nodded, his jaw tightening slightly. He watched as the woman finished her soup, scraping the bottom of the bowl gently, not wanting to waste a single drop. She wiped her mouth with a napkin she folded carefully, as if even napkins deserved respect. The boy tugged on the man's sleeve. "Dad," he whispered, "why is that lady eating alone?" The man looked at his son, surprised by the question. "Sometimes people don't have anyone to eat with," he replied honestly. The boy frowned, thinking hard about that answer. Their food arrived and they ate together, but the man's attention kept drifting back to the corner table. He noticed how the woman kept glancing at the door, as if expecting someone who never came. There was a loneliness there that felt heavy, even from a distance. When they finished eating, the man asked for the check. As the waitress brought it over, he leaned in again. "Could you add one more meal to this?" he asked. "Anything she wants. Don't tell her it's from me." The waitress looked at him surprised, then smiled knowingly. She walked over to the woman's table, speaking softly. The woman looked confused at first, shaking her head slightly. She pointed at her empty bowl, then at the money she had already paid. The waitress gently insisted, placing a menu in front of her again. The woman's hands trembled as she realized what was happening. I don't have more money," she said quietly. The waitress smiled. "It's already taken care of," she replied. "Just order." Tears welled in the woman's eyes, but she blinked them back quickly. She ordered a simple meal, nothing extravagant, still afraid of asking for too much. When the food arrived, she stared at it for a long moment before eating, as if worried it might vanish. Then she took a bite, and something inside her finally cracked. Tears slid down her cheeks silently, dropping onto the table. She covered her face with one hand, overwhelmed not by the food, but by the kindness behind it. It had been a long time since anyone had done something for her without expecting something in return. From his booth, the man watched, making sure she never noticed him. The boy followed his gaze and smiled softly. "Dad," he whispered, "was that you?" The man nodded slightly. The boy's smile grew wider, proud in a way only children can be. When the woman finished eating, she stood slowly and approached the counter, thanking the waitress repeatedly. As she turned to leave, her eyes met the man's. For a brief moment, neither spoke. She seemed to understand without words, and she nodded, pressing a hand to her heart. The man stood as well, meeting her halfway. "Happy New Year," he said simply. She smiled through tears. "You too," she replied. "You have no idea what this means." He shook his head gently.